Hello and welcome to this week's version of Ask Steph. I'm Stephanie Lillian, and every week I answer your yoga and meditation questions. So this week's question is super fun. It's going to be a tutorial based on a posture. The question is, how do I do Chaturanga Dandasana properly? Now you may be wondering, what is Chaturanga Dandasana? And Chaturanga Dandasana in lay terms is four-limbed staff pose. So it's the posture that you usually find sandwiched in between plank pose and upward facing dog or low cobra, typically during a vinyasa, one breath per one movement, or through a sun salutation. So we're gonna go through how to properly find your way into the alignment of Chaturanga Dandasana so you can effortlessly flow throughout your yoga classes. So to start, let me just give you an idea of what this posture looks like. So the full version of the posture is one, four-limbed, which hands and feet are on the ground, staff pose, so the body is straight and strong. So four-limbed staff pose, Chaturanga Dandasana, looks like this. So it's essentially kind of the lower part of a push-up, if you will. However, the shoulders are a bit forward, the elbows are stacked directly over the wrist. So there's many different levels that you can work into this posture. So we're gonna break it down, and I'm also gonna tell you a little bit of what I see, common mistakes, as we go throughout our time together today. So if you are ready and you want to flow with me, please do so, because feeling it in your body and to feel what you're doing right now is the perfect place to start. If we don't really know what we're doing, then it's hard to begin to grow into any posture. So let's give it a try. We're gonna start in plank pose with the knees on the ground. So come on, join me, or you can watch and then join me next time you watch this video. But essentially, when we come into plank pose, we want to have the knees backward of the hips. So the low belly's pulling in and up, and we're pressing the ground away through the hands, fingertips spread wide, and we're pressing our weight forward more towards the balls of the fingers rather than the wrists to create some of that weight shifting forward, and then we're keeping the shoulders stacked over the wrist. So you might be wondering, like, how, once I'm here, do I bring my shoulders or keep my elbows stacked over the wrist and bring my shoulders forward? That doesn't make sense. Most people do a push-up, they kind of drop their elbows backwards. But in our four-limb staff position, instead, we find this motion of shining or bringing the heart forward and the shoulders forward of the fingertips, like this. So see how much forward my shoulders are of my fingertips? That's the posture. So it really ignites the triceps, the backs of the arms. So take a moment with me here and bend the elbows and just see kind of what happens. Does it look like the elbows come behind the wrists? If so, we want to keep the elbows over the wrists and bring the shoulders quite far forward of the fingertips. So just try that a couple times, and you might need a friend, a family member to show you or take a picture of you to really see what you're doing here. Now sometimes when I work with my students, I see their elbows come out towards the sides or somewhere in between. With this posture, we really want to keep the elbows hugging in towards the body. So again, you will feel your body working in this posture. If you're still playing around, feel free to do so. But you will feel the body begin to work as you do this lift and lower. Now, before we lift those knees up, this is a perfect place to start your practice with the knees down. So if you are here, I do want to go over one of the most common things that I see in this posture, whether the knees are down or lifted. So one of the most common things that I see, mistakes that I see in this posture, is a motion that looks like this. So we'll be like coming up from plank pose, and then we'll be, okay, lower down, and I see a worm-like action like that. And then you lift up to your low cobra or upward facing dog on the inhale. So again, we exhale to lower, and I see something that looks a little bit like that, and then we inhale, lift up. So that type of worm-like motion uses minimal engagement within the body, within the core. Four-limb staff poses after plank pose, whether the knees are lifted or lowered, and it really continues to use all that engagement. So a tool that I like to use with my students, or a little way to become aware of the body, is to come back into that position and take a moment, bring your awareness to the body, and begin to lower down. Now, you're going to keep lowering, 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 just like you normally would, just to become aware of your body and see what hits the ground first. Is it the hips? Is it the chest? Notice what part of your body hits the ground first. What is it for you? So take a moment, give it a try. What hits the ground first when you lower yourself down? If you're not lowering the chest and the torso and the hips at the same kind of plane, then something's dropping forward and we're not keeping the back and the core nice and strong. So I'd like to invite you to pull the low belly in towards the spine and really engage the core. And you might have to practice this lots of times. I've had students who it has taken lots and lots of time for them to build that mind-body connection and awareness in their body to not let their hips drop down first. So you can keep trying this and see, okay, I'm lowering, and you can set your body down here. What's going to lower first? Oh, yay, my chest and hips touch the ground at the same time. So again, we really want to avoid this motion of worming down towards the mat. While it's a lot easier to do so, unfortunately, we won't be developing or progressing in our practice when we do so because we're not challenging the body to work. Another little tip and trick that I'd like to share with you is actually standing up and using the wall. So I'd like to invite you to stand up and find a wall in your house. I'm going to use this guy right here. And it's the same idea of if you're finding it difficult to understand the concept of lowering the body down all in one plane, we're going to use the wall and essentially do wall push-ups. So if you're at your wall, you're going to extend your arms out, palms flat on the ground, and you're essentially going to stay that far away from the wall. The wrists are going to start just directly extended from the shoulders. So you'll be able to push the wall away through your hands, okay? So from here, I'd like you to just kind of lower towards the wall. Come on back. And as you're here, imagine like your body is a stiff board, okay? So you're lowering, coming back. And see here if you can really keep your body strong, low belly pulling in, and rather than dropping those hips forward and then the chest, you can really stay strong. Now the next part of this is going to show you how to find that shoulders forward of the fingertips type motion. So we're still here with the arms out straight, but this time we're going to come up to the tippy toe. So now, in other words, the wrists are aligned with the elbows rather than the shoulders. And then when you come forward from the tippy toes, you'll find the wrists stay stacked over the shoulder, or the wrists stay stacked under the elbows. There we go. A little bit more. You may have to shift the hands down slightly to find that feeling. But doing this motion at the wall helps you to find the sensation in the body rather than doing it while you're really doing a lot of work in the body using those muscles. So if you are in the process of learning how to do this posture, I totally recommend that you take time, maybe even every day, to practice a couple simple wall push-ups. Keep the low belly pulling in. And then once you kind of get that concept down of keeping this body strong, you lift up onto the toes and practice just the feeling in your body of bringing the shoulders forward of the fingertips. Because when we come onto the mat, whether the knees are lifted or lowered, this idea of the shoulders coming forward of the fingertips is the same concept that we're kind of throwing the chest forward of the wrists and the fingertips to get that forward-like motion, okay? So that's the kind of the basics of it. We're gonna give it a try, lift it up on the toes as well, but if that's not in your practice right now, no need to go there. It takes a lot of time to develop the upper body strength, the core strength in order to achieve the posture to its fullest capability. So if you want to join me, or if you just want to watch four-limb staff pose, Chaturanga Dandasana, so we start in our plank position, and then notice here that, take a look at my toes, my feet as I move. So when I lower down, my body shifts forward a lot, and I'm almost on my tippy toes. So plank pose, look at my feet, lower down. And my lowering down is not a complete setting down, so as you warm up, when you're flowing through your sun salutations in class or the vinyasas, you might lower your body down completely and push up to a low cobra. But when you're transitioning from plank pose, lowering down Chaturanga Dandasana and inhaling up to upward facing dog, the full extent of this posture is actually just a hover off the ground. So we really don't lower ourselves completely. So if you do want to advance your practice, that's the next step, is to keep your body lifted, keep the body engaged, and just simply flow plank pose, Chaturanga Dandasana, upward facing dog without touching the ground at all. So again, let me demonstrate that for you. Plank pose. I'll take an inhale here, exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana, inhale, upward facing dog. And then we usually exhale to down dog. Another thing you want to keep in mind here as you're flowing is that the shoulders always stay relatively in line with the elbows when we lower down. So I'm not lowering massively with the shoulders below the elbows. I'm staying in one plane, okay? So if you want to try that, again, it may help to have a buddy, a friend, or even just a camera to record what you're doing so you can get a sense of what's going on and how to modify. So let's go through those points one more time together. So if you're starting out in Chaturanga Dandasana, this is a new posture for you, I highly recommend starting with the knees on the ground. Again, in yoga, we work with our body with where it's at today. When we go from 0 to 100, we're more likely to not only injure ourselves, but get discouraged, but we also don't build the correct muscles and strength and opening in the body if we were to take every step at a time and really build within those steps, okay? So first step, knees on the ground. Now, I'd like to recommend, if you're really just building the body awareness for this posture, to add some practice at the wall. So you start with those hands straight out in front of you, practice lowering and lifting, keeping the body totally straight. Again, you can come up onto the tippy toes and practice what it feels like to have the wrists under the elbows lowering and lifting as well. From there, you can practice on the ground with the knees down and try to find that same body feeling that you've cultivated at the wall now at the ground. You're going to notice a lot more engagement in the upper arms and the chest and the core when you're working on the ground, because now you're, rather than your feet holding your weight, your arms and your knees are working, holding your weight, lifting and lowering. So first step is to be on the knees, practice lowering, and notice what part of your body hits first. It might take you a long time to build that core strength to allow yourself to lower in one kind of straight line rather than the worming down, okay? And that is totally fine. Enjoy your journey. You will get there. Once you begin to establish that lifting and lowering motion of being able to keep the core strong, from there, maybe you work up to lifting the knees up off the ground and then finding that whole body lifting and lowering. Again, this is staff position. Staff position is like a staff in the ground, straight. You're lowering your body down in one stiff kind of board motion. And from there, also keeping the elbows pulled in by the sides, kind of thrusting yourself, if you will, controllably forward of the fingertips, so shoulders come forward of the fingertips as you lower towards the mat. And as your practice builds, the lowering all the way down turns to just a hover as you transition between the two postures. So let me demonstrate this to you one more time. Again, we go plank pose. So let's do the knees down first. You can do this with me. We exhale to lower, and you can move slowly. Inhale to your upward facing dog. All right? One time with the toes curled under. Inhale. Exhale. Lower. Inhale. Upward facing dog. And that's that. So I really, really, really like to encourage you to practice this posture. This, as well, is one of those fundamental postures that you'll find in lots and lots of yoga classes, because, especially those that are vinyasa based, because they follow that flow type nature, moving from plank pose, lowering down, inhaling up dog, exhaling down dog. So when you take the time to learn this posture, it really helps to improve your practice as a whole. So take your time, practice. Maybe you have a friend to help you out to kind of tell you what they see going on in your body rather than you just mentally thinking what's going on. Practice those drills at the wall. Those will absolutely help you. Work with the knees down, then maybe work with the knees lifted. take each step for its own, and once you've mastered each step, in other words, once you've been able to find the connection to the body through the breath in each of those steps and stay there with the mind, then you move on. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I hope this tutorial gave you a little bit more insight on how to properly perform Chaturanga Dandasana, an awesome pose for building strength in the core and the upper arms. I'll see you next time. Namaste.